We are walking through a series that we affectionately have been calling Ding. It is a series in this season of Epiphany. An epiphany is this light bulb moment, but it's also something that comes from the scripture. It comes from the story of Jesus. In between Advent and Christmas, and then the story of Lent, the season of Lent, the church celebrates the season of Epiphany. It starts with the shining of the star on the wise men, lighting the way, not just for a few people, but for the whole world to see and know the truth of Jesus. But what's also true about Epiphanies is that they are these moments where light shines on us, in such a way where we come to know a truth that we would not have known otherwise if it was not revealed to us from above. We come to experience a truth about the way the world really is, about the way we really are, about who God really is. And Jesus does all of this for us as the incarnation of God, fully God. And in his first teaching, in what we call the Sermon on the Mount, or what my son affectionately calls Jesus on a Hill, Jesus revealed, I said, what are you doing in the bubble this month? And he goes, I don't know, Jesus on a hill? And I said, it's a little early for the crucifixion. Are you talking about the Sermon on the Mount? He's like, yeah, that's it. So Jesus in this first teaching, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, right away reveals these truths. They are upside down sounding kinds of things, but they are things that very quickly reveal to the original audience and still to us today these light bulb kinds of moments that help us see what's really true and make a difference in our lives. So as we've been going through this series, we've been pointing out these ding moments, and the first one in the Sermon on the Mount is grace is the only way to live. Jesus begins this teaching, I think, by necessity, by pointing out for us that on our own, can't do it. Not the best version of me, not the Pharisees, not the experts. In the fulfillment of all things that Jesus has come to bring, in the fulfillment of my life, grace is the only way to live. And if that's true, that leads us to some additional ideas, such as that hate doesn't get the final word, love does. That cheeks are to be turned, even enemies are to be loved and prayed for. Tiana shared that when we were snowed in the first time 2 weeks ago. It was a good, we stood up here and said, grace is the only way to live 3 weeks ago today. And that's good because I don't know about you, but I've needed a whole heap of grace. Snowed in, my son broke his arm, my wife sliced her thumb open. Grace is the only way to live, I promise you. I hope you found some grace these past few weird weeks of January and early February too. It's upside down. Hate not getting the last word, but love getting the last word. It's upside down. It's something that's meant to make us think, oh. And all of this, we're looking for the kind of life this leads us to. This also leads us to this point. Jesus calls us to be salt and light. He's not calling us to status and flash. You and I in this world, Jesus says, we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world, that if we do all the things we do when it comes to faith and religion, just so other people will see us or notice us, they will, and that's all you'll get. Or if we think that all of this is meant to be this white-hot flash that we pour on the world's problems or pour on this issue or pour on this thing or just dump a whole bunch of salt on it and then move on, that's not how salt works. We are called to salt and light and not status and flash. There are 2,394 words in the Sermon on the Mount. It's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And Jesus talks about all kinds of things in addition to these things that we're speaking on here. He's talking about the law and the prophets, anger, lust, dishonesty, retaliation, vengeance. He speaks on prayer, giving, fasting, money. He invites us to ask, seek, and knock. Invites us to a narrow way. Good trees that bear good fruit and a house built on rock. Some of the most famous lines in the entire Bible are here, including the Lord's Prayer and the Golden Rule. But in these 2,394 words, Jesus will spend the most amount of time, the highest word count, talking about the two things that we'll talk about today, which are the two things that will rob us of this life faster than anything else. If grace is the only way to live, and if that reorients our posture, our stance, our approach when it comes to enemies and what we think about hatred and retaliation, if it reminds us that we are meant to be salt and light, not to do things so others will see, or to just dump a whole bunch of stuff on something in a white-hot flash and then move on. If this is a steady diet, a steady faith, Jesus will spend the most amount of time in this sermon where there is so much life here. Jesus spends the most amount of time talking about the two things that will rob us of this life faster than anything else. Those two things come at the end of Matthew 6 and the start of Matthew 7. So I want to show you two thieves and two ways maybe we can do some protection and security on our life against those things. Here's the first one in Matthew 6:25. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink. Do not worry about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Do not worry about your life, and do not worry about your body. Let's talk about language for a second. The New Testament was originally written in Greek. There's many different words that we can use for both life, many different words the Bible does use for both life and body. So here, I'm gonna put these words in kind of the way we say them in English. The word life is the word psyche. It's not bios. It's not like do not worry about your physical biology. And the word body is the word soma. It's not the word flesh, like the sinful, the way Paul writes a lot of times about the flesh. This is your psyche and your soma, not your biology and your flesh. Do not worry about your life, and do not worry about your body. Let's also say this. It is not, do not worry about bears. It is not, do not worry about ice. It is not, do not worry about danger, okay? When my wife sliced her thumb open, my wife runs the Carm in Powell, and she texted me a few weeks ago and said, we got this great set of knives that just came in through Carm, and she was right. And so when she was slicing potatoes, she got more than she bargained for on her thumb, and I was worried about her body and her like all that stuff. So this passage is not, do not worry about danger, okay? I'm not here to tell you this morning to stop being so afraid of spiders. I'm still worried about roller coasters, yeah, okay? So it's not, don't worry about danger. It's do not worry about your life, and do not worry about your body. The word worry in Greek is this word merimno. It's the same word that's in a very famous passage in Philippians that we looked at 2 or 3 summers ago that was the most highlighted passage in the Bible that talks about do not be anxious about anything, but pray about everything. And that word merimno, do not worry, merimno means to be pulled apart. Worry in the sense of the way that it can come into our lives and pull us in a million different directions. So much so that we lose our centering, we lose our purpose, we lose our sense of self. Now, Jesus is going to follow this by inviting his followers, inviting us to consider flowers and birds. Birds who neither sow nor reap nor cook, but are fed every day. Flowers, many of which Eugene Peterson says in the Message, are never even seen. Flowers that are more beautiful than the best we can do in all of our effort. Do not worry about your life and your body. Isn't your life more than food? Isn't your body more than clothes? Consider the birds and the flowers. It's important to note that when Jesus is talking about worry here, he doesn't put it in the anger, lust, dishonesty section. So it's not that Jesus is approaching worry the way Jesus approaches sin so much. It's not that Jesus is talking about worry in the same way that he's talking about, you've heard it said, don't be angry, but I'm here to tell you this is what your anger can turn into, what your lust, why it matters, how your dishonesty matters, and all these things. This is a different section, and it carries a different kind of feel to it. But even that being the case, Jesus spends more time talking about worry than anything else because I think it's true that worry can rob us of this life faster than anything else. Again, the life we're called to here, this life of grace, the story for a church, the story for a follower of Jesus, the story is not believe in Jesus and try not to commit felonies. You should still try not to commit the felonies. But what will rob us of this life faster than anything else is being so pulled apart because we're consumed with worry about our life and about our body. Jesus says, perhaps you should consider being more like the birds and the flowers. Now, here's what's also true of Jesus, fully God and truly human, which means he knows what it's like to be us, which means he knows when he says this that you and I are not going to be like, oh my gosh, no one has ever told me not to worry before. Jesus, thank you so much. Now that you've told me not to worry, I'll never do it again. If that's working for you, you come take the microphone, but it ain't working for me. So notice what else he says at the end of this passage. This is verse 34 in Matthew 6. So, do not worry, do not be pulled apart about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today, and you already know that. So notice again here, he doesn't say you will not have trouble. In fact, another place in the New Testament, what does he say? In this life, you will have trouble. He knows. Jesus is not just the prophetic voice of God. Jesus was a person. He knows. In this life, you will have trouble. And you'll have trouble today of various, who knows? Who knows what today will bring? Who knows what complex feelings about Tom Brady might resurface a little later tonight that you thought were over and done with? Just me? No? Okay. All right. Well, it's do not be pulled apart about tomorrow, because tomorrow there's going to be more reasons to be pulled apart about the next day. Today's trouble is enough for today. When we're being pulled, when we're worried about our life and our body and all of these things, when we feel like we're being pulled in a million different directions, it's as if Jesus recommends centering or recentering on today. What can I do today? Because tomorrow's tomorrow. And I can't go back either. Another pastor said to me this week, the only place we can experience Jesus is in the present. Because he's back there, but I don't have a time machine. And tomorrow, he's there too, but you're not. Not yet. You're here. I'm here. You can always, only, ever be here. And what helps center us when we're threatened to be pulled apart by worrying about our life and our body, what helps center us is being right back here. Because what's also true is that a lot of time that human beings spend worrying about their lives and worrying about their bodies come from places of fear and shame. If you think about the amount of time you spend worrying about your life, or the amount of time you spend worrying about your body, or not even worrying, the amount of time you spend thinking about your life and the amount of time you spend thinking about your body, what percentage of those thoughts come from places of fear or shame? And fear and shame, though very effective in the short term, fear and shame are enemies for us in the long term because grace is the only way to live. And Jesus invites us instead to consider the birds and the flowers. It's as if he is saying, if we want healthier lives and bodies, if you want a healthier psyche or soma, that might come more from a place not of fear and shame, but flight and beauty. What if we spent more time considering flight and beauty and today? Because tomorrow is going to pull us apart, and so is worry about our life or our body. So then he's going to marry it because worry in particular puts the focus so intensely on ourselves, we almost can't help but gravitate to its brother. Do not worry about your life. And in Matthew 7:1, do not judge, so that you may not be judged. Because there is a never mind a spiritual, there is a psychological feedback loop between worry and judgment. If I spend so much time examining, being hypervigilant about myself, about my own life, and all those other things, almost by default, I'm going to do it about you too. And me being so worried about myself does not, or at least for me, has not prevented me an inch from judging you at the same time. Again, you may have done it on the way here this morning. Worry and judgment get intermingled in this way. If we are constantly focused on what will go wrong with ourselves, we will no doubt find what is going wrong with others. Jesus here is going to go on to talk about a speck in your neighbor's eye that you observe while not noticing a log that is in your eye. Because simultaneously, even though we're prone to worry and be pulled apart, we're also still very good at being hypocritical. And he'll go on to say, why do you notice the speck in your neighbor's eye, but you don't see the log that's in your eye? Perhaps because you're pulled apart by so many other things. It is a speck in your neighbor's eye, not your enemy's eye, which implies that we're meant to see that and deal with that and treat that person like a neighbor. Jesus famously will go on to invite us to consider the question of who is our neighbor through the lens of who's not our neighbor. Hate doesn't get the last word, love does. And here's what's also true. How do you get something out of someone's eye? Very carefully, right? How do you get something out of someone's eye? Very carefully. Much, much, much more damage than healing gets done when we perceive, when we judge something in someone else and say, you've got that in your eye. Let me get that for you. Like that's blindness will beget blindness. Jesus spends more time here on these two things because the life we actually want, the life he's come to give us, will get pulled apart by these two things faster than anything else. The light bulb moment for this morning. Worry and judgment will rob your life. Jesus comes to give us life. And sometimes we, or maybe I, can tend to think of it as that life is at risk because of felonies or all these other things. And again, it's not too much to ask not to do those big, giant, capital letter, terrible things. But day to day, worry and judgment will rob your life faster than anything else. It's why he spends so much time talking about it. Nothing will pull us apart from ourselves faster than worry, and nothing will pull us apart from each other faster than judgment. For worry and judgment, Jesus centers us in two ways. One, he invites us to center on today, because tomorrow will have enough troubles for its own. Center here on today. And then he invites us to center on the big thing itself. This is verse 33 of Matthew 6. Strive or seek first for the kingdom of God, the Jesus way of life, and his righteousness. And all these things, what to eat, what to wear, what to do, all these things will be given to you as well. When my life is being pulled apart in all these different directions, what helps me is to center on today and to center on Jesus. There is a reason we keep saying that he is at the center of everything. Not just because it's true, because it helps. When I'm threatened to be pulled apart with worry about this, or I'm threatened to be pulled apart by judging someone, or multiple someones, or groups of someones, or whatever the case may be, it's centering not on my own life or my own body or your own problems or someone else's own problems, but centering on this Jesus way of life. Because what we are called to is salt and light and flight and beauty. Not to condemn the world, because we can't see clearly enough to do that ourselves, but to be a group of people who daily are experiencing the truth and the goodness of who Jesus is through grace, and work and move in this world like salt and light, like flowers and birds, that can say, hey, that thing, that doesn't taste very good. Let me offer you something that does. That thing, that seems dark and is not showing you the way. Let me offer you something that does. And this life has trouble, no doubt. But if I want a healthier psyche and soma, if I want a healthier life and body, that comes much more through grace than through fear and shame. Nothing in our stories, nothing in our lives will rob us of the life Jesus comes to give us faster than worry and judgment. May we center ourselves on the truth he provides, centering ourselves on today, and to trust that he has given us everything in the kingdom of God. And when we center ourselves on that, we're going to find God everywhere else in our lives as well.